So how many of you guys like vegetables? Anybody? When my mom would tell me, hey, you need to eat your broccoli. Hey, you need to eat your asparagus. Hey, eat your carrots. Eat your beans. All of those, horrible things as a kid that I, would be sitting at the table for hours on end, dreading eating those lima beans. I can't stand lima beans to this day. Can't stand them. Anybody else on that bandwagon? Anybody else? Okay. But vegetables aren't good for us only one time. We don't reap the benefits of veggies just by eating them once, right? If we did, then I think everybody would like vegetables, right? Because then we would just be like, okay, cool, one and done, right? No more Brussels sprouts, no more. We could just go on and on. I'll spare you the details of all the long list of vegetables that we could name. But you don't, the benefits from vegetables don't come from you just eating them once, right? The benefits come from when we eat it regularly, right? It's a regular part of our diet. Am I right in that? Okay. So I'm convicting you right now because you're thinking about the Saturday night meal that you had last night, and it probably involved burger and fries or pizza or something. And we're starting off talking about vegetables. Veggies are good for you in repetition, when it's your norm. That's when your body really begins to glean from what they have to offer, right? So my message today is not about vegetables at all, but the point remains this. Sometimes we have to hear something over and over and over again in order for us to be able to receive the benefit of what that thing is. You guys follow me? Okay. So today is not going to be some like grandiose sermon that's like, oh, I've never heard that before. It's going to be covering something that is probably very familiar. But we do it just like vegetables. We're going to partake of this because it might be exactly what we need today so that we can benefit for the future. You guys with me? Yeah. All right. The topic today, I believe, is a basic human tendency. I would probably even call it an instinct that every single person in this room has done. Every single person in this room, I believe even creation exemplifies this. And it is this tendency to value comfort over character. Okay? We'll just let that sink on in. Sink on in. Comfort over character. I got this idea for this message. The Lord was really speaking to me in some very unusual ways, and I love it when He does that because sometimes those unusual things that you see throughout the week, you don't even know why. You're like, why is that stuck in my brain? And then all of a sudden God brings it full circle, and you're like, Lord, that is just awesome. That's great. I was at my house today, or this week, excuse me, and I was cleaning some stuff out, and how many of you guys have ever done this? I might freak some of you guys out who are a little bit squirmish around bugs, but you pull something out of the corner of your attic or your garage or something, and then all of a sudden there's like that cockroach or something that runs out, or there's that spider or what have you, right? And you up and decide, hey, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do it some justice. I'm going to get it looking great. I'm going to make things look awesome again. And it's a good intent, but then as you get in there and you start working, you're moving things, and then all of a sudden there's that creepy color that just like shoots out from behind the box, and then you go, and then, then you contemplate whether you should continue with the process of cleaning out your garage, right? Well, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about what that must feel like being that bug, and I'm going somewhere with this. I promise. Okay. All right, I'm going somewhere. Say, we're going somewhere. Okay, we are. I promise. So I was sitting there and I saw this bug, shoot out, and I just began to kind of watch it. Like I don't mind bugs. Like I recognize the fact and this very absolute truth that I happen to weigh a lot more than a bug, and so I can just easily step on it, and then that's the end of the story. But most of you guys don't carry that knowledge, and I'd be happy to give it to you at any point. If you just would ask, I would love to sit down with you and just dispense that to you. But I was beginning to just sit there, and I was just watching this spider. It was a spider that was like running around, and I saw that I had taken its box, moved it, and it exposed this spider. The spider runs and then loops back around back to where the box used to be. And I began to kind of sit there and just like think about that for a second. And then I was beginning to think about my life because God told me, hey, you're that spider. And I'm like, man, that was low, God. That was low. And it's like, hey, you're just like that. And I began to think about what he was saying. He wasn't dissing me, I promise. It was him trying to show me that even to the smallest bit of creation, there is a higher value on comfort than character. And what I mean by that is this. In our lives, whenever we face something that's hard, how many of us, rhetorical question here, when we encounter something that's difficult, when it's trying, when we're exposed, when we feel like we're on unsure ground, like it's unsure footing, how many of us like to retreat back to the place of security? In a lot of ways, we're no different than that little spider that I had seen. I moved the box, its security, its covering, and it was exposed. What's happening? Who is this large string bean that's about to step on me, And then like, oh, it's running around. Oh my gosh, where's my box? Where's my box? Well, I'll go back to the last place I found it. And you and I are no different. I was thinking about this week as I was preparing for this message, I was sitting down and, man, how many of you guys know that like the best way to get convicted by God is to literally just sit down with him and not say anything? And I was just sitting down and I was just thinking about what he wanted to say today. And I was thinking about everything that I had been going through in the week and just it had been kind of a busy week for me. And I'm in a new season of life. There's a lot of new variables that are kind of at work. And so I'm trying to get like a new routine and all of that. But I was just sitting down and I felt this conviction come over me that I hadn't been spending as much time with him as I needed to. I felt that conviction. And it was a holy conviction. It wasn't God trying to make me feel bad. It was just him kind of like a parent would say like, hey, I miss you. And that's all that it was. And I just began to sit there and think, oh, God. And naturally, and tell me if you've done this or you do this as well. I sat there and I said, oh, God, just take me back to the way that I was so focused, that season that I was so focused, and you just take me back there, God. And I said it with a smile. I met such great intention. And God said to me this, no. And it kind of like, I thought I made it up for a second. And I was like, enemy, I rebuke you. And so then I stopped again and I was just like, God, just like, I know that that's true. Like, I know that like you are my home and that like you are my rock. Like you are my righteousness. Like I can't do this whole thing without you. I can't. Like I know that comes from my relationship with you. You're telling me I got to just be more intentional in this new season that I'm in and this new transition, the things that I'm trying to get sure footing on. Like, don't forget my solid rock. And I'm like sitting there thinking about all that. I'm like, God, like just get me back to that point. Yeah, where I'm like focused. And he said again, no. And then I heard him say this. He said, my people always want me to take them back, but I desire to move them forward. And I just want that to sink in for just a quick second, just before we move here, okay? Because this is something that is so important that we grasp this. Now, I want to preface this first. I don't think that this is something that we can just master in one sitting. I don't think that this is something that we're going to be able to just walk out of here today and be like, great, I got it, I'm good now. I don't think that that's how this works. Because I think that in the things of life, the things that take time to develop are more valuable than things that come instantaneously. See, I'm not interested in us creating a culture of mushroom Christianity where we just pop up, mature overnight. I'm not interested in that. I want there to be a culture in this church where we grow steadily, bit by bit, root growing a little by little, to where it spreads enough to be able to support an entire tree. because we are oaks of righteousness. We're not mushrooms of righteousness, right? But he said, my people always want me to take them back, but I desire to move them forward. Take me back, God. How many of us have said that in our walk with God? God, just take me back. Take me back to when I didn't have all of the distractions that I have right now. I'm like, oh man, my relationship with you was bomb then. Like I was able to focus more. I was able to be just more in tune with you. I could hear you and I could feel you all around. And whenever I would come to church and we would sing worship, I would just be just wonderful. But now life is just a little bit different than how it was then. And I've got a lot more on my plate and I've got a lot less time and it's a lot more stressful and God, just take me back. Just take me back. Just with great ease, it rolls off of our tongue. It's hidden in our vocabulary. And again, I think that this is something that is so ingrained in us, just as creation as a whole. That literally, like that little spider, when I moved its box and its security blanket was out from under, he was exposed and he was in danger. He felt like he was afraid. He was fearful. He ran back to the place that he first had comfort. And I believe that when we do that as a people, as children of God, it is a form of idolatry. I believe that is. Now, I think that I believe that that's the case because God is not tied to a place like he was in the old covenant. Take me back, God. Oh God, take me back to the glory days. For some of us, those glory days were 10 years ago. Some of us, you're thinking about today, the things that God did through you 20 years ago, 5 months ago, and you're living off of yesterday's manna. But we know in the scriptures of what happened to the manna that the Israelites would store for more than a day. It would get wormy, right? Are you living off of yesterday's bread? God doesn't want to take you back. He wants to move you forward. And this take me back God mentality, we see this all throughout Scripture. Israel exemplifies this in Exodus 16. Like the second God, it's really awesome. Like you see Israel, and we sang about it today in one of the songs. God parts the Red Sea. He delivers them out of the hand of Egypt. And then almost instantaneously, they begin to grumble. God, why did you bring us out here in this desert? Why did you bring us out in this wilderness? In Exodus 16, you see this mentality that I just want to get back to the way things were. It also picks up in Numbers 11, verses 4 through 6. We'll have it up here on the screen, but just reading from here really quickly, it says that the people who were among them had greedy desires, and also the sons of Israel wept again and said, "Who will give us meat to eat?" Have we ever done that? We remember the fish, they said, which we used to eat free in Egypt, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic, but now our appetite is gone. There is nothing at all to look at except this manna. Maybe you feel like that right now in this season of life, where you're saying, God, I remember how vividly you were moving in my life back in the day when I was devoted and I had more time to give to you. I was reading my Bible every day. I was praying to you every single day, and you were doing miracles through my life. You were healing people, and you were using me to speak to people, and you were allowing me to be a vessel to help lead people into your kingdom. And oh God, wasn't it so great then? But now I've got this 9-to-5 job, and it's hard, and I don't feel like I'm connected to you. And God, would you just take me back to how things were? And when we do that, we sound just like Israel does here in this passage. Oh, would you just take us back to Egypt, where we had fish and cucumbers and all of those good things that were provided to us for free? And God would have us know this today. Isaiah 43, it's a passage that we are all very, very familiar with. But Isaiah 43, starting in verse 18, says this: "Do not call to mind the former things, or ponder the things of the past. Behold, I will do something new. Now it will spring forth. Will you not be aware of it? I will even make a roadway in the wilderness, rivers in the desert. If Israel could have grabbed a hold of that understanding, being in that they were traveling from a place of bondage and slavery into their promised land. But the thing was that God was not concerned about giving them the promised land. He was concerned about developing them into a people that could steward the promised land. It wasn't about just geographically moving them. It was about them being in a place to be able to take hold of a promise that God had given to them, but to be able to foster it well, so that when they got into that promised land, they wouldn't abandon the one who gave it to them. And God is asking us the same thing today. He's saying, you know what? You desire to go back because it's comfortable back there, because you know what it looks like back there, because you know the things that were supplied to you back there. But the thing that I want for you is ahead of you. It's in front of you. It's moving forward. And if you'll push through it, if you'll stay focused, if you won't let the enemy come in and try to weigh you down in your thinking that you are off track, that you're disqualified, that you're not good enough anymore, that you got to try harder, that you got to do more. If you'll push those things aside, then you'll see that I'm right there in front of you, calling you forward, not pushing you backwards. Amen? Some of you guys know that I love running. I thoroughly enjoy running, and the more I talk about it, the more I'm realizing that I have no more excuse to not be running anymore. I need to start running again, because I thoroughly enjoy all of the things that running, the benefits that running gives to you. If you couldn't tell, I am a runner. It's very apparent in my genetic makeup, but the other aspects of running, I think these are my most favorite things about it. The spiritual symbolisms that I've gleaned from running are just so wonderful. And I was thinking about how this pertains to this message today of like going back and Lord, take me back. Just take me back to the way things were and when things were great. And God gave me this picture. He gave me this picture of when like I'm running. And if you're a runner, if you've ever ran before, even if it's to the grocery store, it's okay. You know that like there's some really incredible psychological things that happen in your brain when you're running, okay? Ideas that you had never entertained before suddenly become rational, okay? And you just throw all caution to the wind, and you're just like, I gotta have this thing, right? Well, what's wonderful about it, I was thinking about just all of the many memories I have from running, and I began to get this picture of one of these times when I was running. I was doing like an 8-mile run, and it was an interesting course that I was running, and I got about halfway through it, and I began to, get a cramp, and man, when you get one like right here on your side, it's like the worst thing in the world. It's terrible. But above that, the worst thing that you could do in that moment is stop. You got to keep pushing forward. You got to keep moving, because if you teach your body that you're going to stop every time you get a cramp, you'll just always get cramps. You don't believe me? Try it. I promise it does work. You got to push through it. So I was sitting there, and I was just thinking about one of those times where I'd gotten this really bad cramp, and God said, when you pray for me to take you back to the way things were, it would be as ridiculous as you asking, or as you, when you're in the middle of running and you get a cramp, stopping and then running back to the specific location that you didn't have a cramp, and then going to that location and seeing if it actually fixes your cramp. He said that's literally what that's like. Now, we all know that wouldn't fix anything, right? It's not tied to a location. It's not tied to any kind of point in time. It's an attitude. It's a discipline that must be instilled, right? So it doesn't matter if I go back in that moment. That would do nothing to help the problem. In fact, the best thing for that issue in that moment is to keep moving forward. It's to keep pushing forward, even when you're tired, to not grow weary. Our walk with God through our time on earth is not an obstacle course. It's a race of endurance. See, the enemy would love for us to get in this kind of thinking, that our journey with God through this life on earth is like an obstacle course. How many of you guys have seen American Ninja Warrior? Don't lie, you've all seen it and you all love it, okay? All right? You guys know the drill, right? Like they've got these insane obstacles, and the whole design is to get the contestant to fail. Like they design it so that it makes it so difficult, right? So that only few people will succeed. And that's why we're drawn to it, because we go, man, ain't no way you're going to see me up on them monkey bars. But this dude over here that's a rock climber and that's a gymnast and all that, like, yeah, we'll watch him fail. That'd be really, really awesome while I eat my Big Mac and large Coke, you know? Right? Those kinds of obstacle courses are designed to make you fail. It makes it difficult. It makes it enjoyable for the spectators. But our walk with God is not an obstacle course. It's a race of endurance. See, the problem here is this: when you fall, when you go through a season of life, when things are difficult and you're not spending as much time with God and you're not doing the things that you know that you should be doing, and yada, 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 fill in the blank, we've all done that. The enemy would have you think that God is so displeased with you that you've been disqualified and you have to start all over again. Sorry, you fell off the monkey bars like an American Ninja Warrior, you're out, you got to start again. Better luck next year. But God, being rich in mercy, as it says in Ephesians 2, but God being rich in mercy, desires for each one of us, when we fall short, to get back up, to keep moving. You see, the wonderful thing is that in the marathons that I've run, in any kind of training that I've done, anything, there are people that when they are running on race day that fall, that trip, that get cramps, that stop running. But eventually they pick themselves up and they finish the race. God wants you to hear these words today, church. He wants you to know that your walk with him is not an obstacle course, that you've not been disqualified because you're not doing the things that you probably should be doing and that he's drawing you to do, that he does not disqualify you, but he's calling you forward. He's not telling you to go backwards. He's telling you, get up, don't stop moving, keep pushing forward. You can beat this thing. It's a test of endurance, not an obstacle course to disqualify you. Proverbs 24:16 says, though a righteous man falls 7 times, he will get up every time. That we wouldn't let the enemy keep us down in the pits. And that we wouldn't start believing that cyclical thinking of, yes, I am terrible. Yes, I am disqualified. Man, God sure can't use someone like me. Throw that away. It's time to let your attitude project your altitude. It's time for you to change the way that you believe God's relationship with you works. And the thing is, he's not calling you backwards. He's calling you forward. He's calling you forward. Your success as a Christian, your maturity as a Christian is not tied to a time or a place in your past, but to an attitude that you allow to carry you into your future. It's not tied to an experience that you had way back then when things were great. Your maturity and your success as a Christian is not tied back there. It's moving in front of you, pulling you forward, hopefully creating an attitude that carries you into your future. Paul expresses this in Philippians. This is a verse that we're all super familiar with. He says in Philippians 2, verses 13, it says, I press on, or excuse me, 3 verses 13. He says, but forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call in Christ Jesus. So what are you saying today? I'm saying, church, it's time to stop praying for God to take us back. It's time for us to start praying and positioning ourselves and saying, God, will you move me forward? Can we change that? Can you change that in your devotion and your quiet time? And in those times when you feel like you're down and out, that you would change your vocabulary to start saying, Lord, don't take me back. I don't want to go back there. God, take me forward. Move me forward. Move me to where you are right now. Keep pulling me forward into that new future, that new thing that I can go out and possess. We didn't finish reading over here in Isaiah 43, but I just want to go back to it. Again, just reminding us, Isaiah 43, verse 18, it says, do not call to mind the former things or ponder the things of the past. Behold, I will do something new. Now it will spring forth. Will you not be aware of it? I will even make a roadway in the wilderness, rivers in the desert. The beasts of the field will glorify me, the jackals and the ostriches, because I have given waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert, to give drink to my chosen people, the people whom I formed for myself will declare my praise. See, God is not interested in just shaping you and testing you and building your character just so that you can get stronger. He's doing it strategically so that we can be a people that fill this world and that can sing his praise, that can glorify him, that can say there's no way we could be here today without him. That's what he wants. That's what he desires. And if we're all concerned about our comfort, we will completely miss the character producing heart of God in our present circumstance. Say, I'm not going back. I'm moving forward. I'm not going back. I'm moving forward. Say, God, take me forward. Say, God, no matter how hard I whine, don't take me back. Move me forward. Would you stand up?